Let's do it. So just a couple housekeeping things. We have set the meeting cadence for the steering committee. We have not yet set anything for SIGs, but meetings will take place on the second to last Wednesday of each month at this time, 12 p.m. Eastern time, which is 4 o'clock UTC. I have created a Google Calendar that's public that you can subscribe to. So I will drop that in the notes. We'll obviously send out reminders on Discord, set up events here, but if you want to subscribe to the calendar, it's up to date through, I think, the next year, if not further out. So dropping the link in
Nice.
here. So I think agenda-wise, we want to just review community discussion. If there's any concerns or questions, review project priorities, specifically the indexer, front-end design and marketplace bugs and NFT staking, and then open it up for discussion, questions, comments. So like I mentioned before, if you are on the steering committee and you want to speak, just join us up on stage. And I think let's get started. So we can quickly talk about community discussion. I think that what I've seen, a lot of the community discussion that we've had and tickets that have been submitted on Discord are really going to be resolved by the first project priority that we're discussing, which is the indexer. We've gotten a lot of questions and tickets from the community. Lex, go ahead.
No, yeah, that's exactly it. A lot of the feedback is really just issues with the indexing, current indexing solution, right? So the proposal from CloudMos and just next steps on an indexing solution in general are going to be big for pushing the user experience forward and getting past some of those initial roadblocks.
If anyone else has any concerns that they wanted to voice, go ahead. Otherwise, I think we can dive right into the first project. We have Max from CloudMos who just joined us on stage, and we wanted to review basically the passage indexer requirements that we came up with within the SIG last week, and then Max's proposed bounty for creating this indexer. So maybe I'll share my screen and we'll just start with the requirements, and then we can quickly talk
Yes.
about the proposal and bounty because we definitely want to get the steering committee's thoughts on that. So let me share my screen. This is pretty simplistic, I think, but Lex, do you want to
Yeah, and
walk us?
one thing that's not covered in here that is covered in the scope document from CloudMos is that the API that actually connects with our front end. So yeah, this is pretty basic, and this is the goal here is really just to cover that first section of existing functionality, and then we can build out for future use case. Um, so covering mints, including USD value of passage, being able to continue to index historical data for the price so that we can have a really good dashboard for stats and things for the marketplace. NFT listings and delistings, NFT sales, including USD value of passage, and NFT transfers. So it's going to be really simple at the outset, but we can jump over to the document from CloudMos, which I think showcases really well kind of how we're addressing this. It goes into a little bit more detail, and then also implementing an API that will provide this information that anyone can connect to for feeding into the front end, right? Specifically for the Passage Marketplace, but it will be open for other people if again, for even somebody like Strange Clan fans, or if other people want to be able to access this information, they can do so through the API.
Max,
Yeah,
do
and
you
then
want
going
to
through
walk
this.
us?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
go ahead, Max. If you want to just kind of talk through the indexer, the implementation, API implementation, and the deploy and maintain.
If you're
You're
speaking, I
unmuted,
cannot.
but I do not hear you.
Oh, my mic
There
was
you go.
off. My bad. Yeah, thanks. So yeah, like you said, Max, you talked a bit about the API, but yeah, I think it's essential to be part of the indexer bounty, because having an indexer itself is great, but to communicate with that database and expose it to the community members or the marketplace, we need an API. And I know in the specs document you mentioned like just the NFT sales or listing, delistings, transfers, and in that list there's more than that, because we were basing ourselves on the passage contracts diagram, and I know a lot of these functionalities are not implemented yet, or implemented on the contract side but not in the UI. For example, the auctions, or yeah, mainly the auctions, I guess, or the NFT
Right.
vaults, which I haven't seen. But yeah, these
Yes.
are the things that uh, we're planning on implementing, even though they are not implemented in the UI, because at some point they will, or maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can tell me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can link to the passage. This is something I can
Put
drop
it.
in the chat. The contract repo, because that's all open. So I will grab
Yeah,
that for you so that we can. So you have that to reference, of course, as well.
yeah, I put it in the chat.
Oh, perfect, perfect. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, yeah. So the NFT vault is in there. Yep, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah,
So that's
we
perfect.
did an analysis of like how to implement all of these, because the indexer that we currently have like supports generic Cosmos SDK blockchains,
Right.
but it's like all the Cosmos types, like the send and just the regular transaction types, but it doesn't currently support Cosm Wasm contracts, and like uh,
Right.
there's a few tricky things that happens with the Cosm Wasm contracts that happens like in block events or in transaction events.
Sure. Sure.
So, and it's all stuff that we like the groundwork done in the indexer makes that possible. So yeah, there's I don't think there's like a blocker that we haven't thought about that. So it should be uh, done fairly smoothly, done by following our
Perfect.
analysis, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
So yeah, I don't know what else you guys want me to talk about. If you have questions, we're open to answering questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if
So
we just go
if there's
over
any,
the
go ahead, Brianna.
Yeah, I think just if we could go over the proposed like timeline and payout bounty for consideration with the group, that would be helpful.
Sure. So yeah, this is a proposal. So if you guys have suggestions or counters or whatever, we're open
I
to
think,
discussion, and like the upfront and on completion 50/50 also can be discussed if it's not something that you guys are comfortable with. So yeah.
no, this is great. I'd like to pay out the entire balance in Strange Clan NFTs, rather than in Passage. I'm just being silly. I hope that's abundantly clear. No, and I do appreciate too, kind of the future thinking with deploy and maintain section. Just that this would be something where you guys would be able to support this for a year. That'd be, I think, a big assistance to the community as well.
Yeah, for sure, because like uh, that database will be hosted somewhere initially, probably on our account that we can share with you guys, and we've been running like the version of the indexer for Akash for more than 2 years, so it runs pretty smoothly. But sometimes if you guys like, hey, would like to have an extra API endpoint for just
Yes.
having an extra query or whatever that could be in that package of maintenance and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, Greg says, how long until the indexer is fixed? Users being able to properly see their NFTs. All the other stuff is awesome, but the inability to see NFTs properly is currently the biggest issue by a lot, according to tickets. I would agree. Um, so that is probably one difficulty, and it may just be an inherent difficulty with where we're at for the marketplace. Um, but we're talking about in this a 2 to 3 month timeline. Um, is there an early implementation of this? Is this like what do you see as being? I mean, we're just talking 2 to 3 months, and it's going to be potentially up to 3 months before we have that fix. Or is there a world in
So
which we have a
is
solution
that a
potentially?
question about like the current indexer or our implementation?
I mean, it's probably both, right? Because the alternative is if this isn't understanding the time frame for this may dictate, okay, cool. What do we potentially do to remedy in the meantime, right? How can we patch the current indexer, right? While the new implementation is being built out, right? So it is
Right.
it is a question about the situation, right? And if there's a world in which like, oh, this indexer can be done and if we could have a provision earlier in the timeline that solves this problem, you know, then we probably don't mess around with the current indexer. But with this time frame, it probably makes sense that we're also going to need to find a patch for current solution as well. So, Greg, that's probably what we're going to be looking at is that you know we have an ideal solution in 2 to 3 months, and we'll have to accommodate somehow in the meantime.
Okay. Yeah, I was just looking for like a something to be able to give the users a timeline is all because as you know, we have a bunch of tickets on it. So if the
Yep.
answer is 2 to 3 months, like that's terrific.
Right. But then also, there is a world where I can review this with Mike on our side as well and just figure out, okay, is there a reasonable solution to help people in the meantime while the ideal solution is being developed. So
Right, because
obviously, I think
the look of the functionality looked like it could potentially be iterative, whereas the new indexer was stood up with functionality needed and then other pieces added on. And I didn't know what the process was going to be. If it was going to be new indexer, here's the stuff you need, and then we're going to add on like API support and auctions and everything after the fact, or if it was just going to be like a bunch of months working on it and then bam, all at once, all the new functionality.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's probably more so the. Oh, go ahead.
I'd like to get Max's thoughts on that because that is like in an ideal world. I don't know how this would actually work, but in an ideal scenario, we would have that initial like required functionality and then some of the added features down the line. Max, is that something that's feasible?
Yeah, for sure. We can work in iterations, and that's what we usually do, depending on like the requirements of the users. But yeah, for sure, we can work on a first version of it that meets the needs of the current marketplace state, and then once that is stable, we can continue working on the later features.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think it would definitely be a cool follow up. Not something I want you need to figure out live, but is there a world where that could get us under the 2 month timeline for the initial feature set, or we still talking like it's still within this range? It just puts us at the earlier part of this range. So
Yeah, it's definitely not gonna be like you don't hear from us for 2 to 3 months, and then we come out of nowhere with the whole solution. It's gonna be iterative, and we can communicate on like closer timelines based on whatever the needs. But yeah,
absolutely, as you get into the weeds too.
yeah, for sure.
And again, if anybody from the community has questions on this, feel free to drop those in the chat as well, or steering committee members just jump in and ask questions, things like that. I like this. I do think that it makes sense. Brian, next steps on this specifically?
I think as a next step, we want to implement just a formal proposal, or I think Tyler recommended that what Akash does is use a project board for bounties, just so we have it like fully documented on GitHub, and then we can move it forward to approval. I think, yeah, I just wanted to get kind of a community or steering committee vote on that as we have this one
Yes,
proposal for it, and it is, I think, the highest priority for us right now.
100%. I very much agree.
All right.
Cool.
So moving on, I wanted to talk about Lex. I know yesterday when we spoke, you had mentioned that one of our developers, Nicholas, was working on a repo for contributions, and then I wanted to talk about just kind of part of that, the front end design, marketplace bugs, and NFT staking.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So right now, I want to get Nick. Nick has been in the Discord, Nicholas Ma from our team. But I can get him to just kind of share some updates on the front end stuff in the chat, so that that's just kind of like available for everybody. It's all happening in the repo, so you'll see the updates in the public repo for the marketplace. But he's just been picking away at some of those front end bugs, like the menu for NFT collections being hidden by default, things like that, where it was just not a good user experience. So some of the things in the Passage Marketplace roadmap that we had discussed previously. So some of those things are being picked on. I'll have him share an update there as well, so everyone can just so it's visible in the Discord as well as in the GitHub. And then for the NFT staking, this is something that I want to start a document, and I'll share that in the SIG channel for the requirements of NFT staking, because what we have right now is the NFT vault with the parameters that contains. The next concrete step that would be really useful for the Strange Clan community particularly, but then I want to make this useful for future NFT communities as well, whether it's Wawas or additional collections, would be defining how people can leverage the vault, right? Do we want to prioritize building a front end for that? We do have like tools, for instance, or like development tools for building out or for launching a collection, but they're not exposed on the front end, right? It would all be command line stuff. And same thing with the NFT staking. Do we want to prioritize building out a front end for that, or just figuring out how can people interact with the NFT vault with their collections, and what would be parameters that apply both to the egg staking that the Strange Clan community needs, as well as future NFT staking solutions. So I just need to define some of the requirements for that and figure out what's going to be the most valuable for the community, that extends to the egg staking solution for Strange Clan, but also hopefully goes beyond that as well as a general tool for NFT staking. So expect that in the coming week. I'll have that document. The other thing would be a big priority that we don't really have accounted for right now. I didn't have this on the roadmap because it is still kind of an open item for discussion, is being able to onboard new collections easily, right? Like I mentioned, we do have the I have to get more details on this from Mike. I think it's in one of our repos, but we have a set of tools for getting metadata and images up to Pinata or to ICFS, and different elements for instantiating the smart contracts on the Passage marketplace for NFT collections. So we have a set of tools for that make it relatively easy, but they're not exposed on the front end in any way. So it's it's not quite like what Stargaze has with Studio. But I think it would be good to start looking towards a solution like that that isn't necessarily public, but potentially whitelisted, so that we can whitelist specific creators and have some type of user-friendly tools for them to use to set up their collection. Um, but again, that is not something that we've defined yet, but something I might like to put together a SIG for, so we can discuss what that looks like, especially as we're looking to bring more volume and activity to the marketplace that has the potential to integrate with the Passage platform as well.
Yeah, I think Lex, a good action item then is just for us in the next couple of weeks creating a requirements doc to present to the NFT staking SIG. And I think
Mhm.
with that, gathering a few more folks who want to be involved in that SIG, because I don't know
Yeah.
that we've had any extensive discussion around that.
The only people we've talked to about that would be who's not involved in the open source community yet would be the ONFT crew, specifically. Oh, how am I going to forget our boy over at ONFT? But basically, their team has some type of NFT staking solution. We talked to them a little bit about it, but the discussion didn't really go anywhere. Wolfman over at ONFT. Um, so I know there are some solutions already in Cosmos. So theoretically, there are people in the space who have some relevant experience. But also, this is something anybody can get involved in on the smart contract level. So
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to previous discussion, we got a couple questions. So Greg was asking about if the vote needs to be on chain for approving the indexer work. I think we're open to discussion, but based on our conversation with Tyler, I think this just for us, we're happy to have this be a discussion within the steering committee and then, have the core passage team kind of help drive that decision based on all of the contributions and the discussion. So
yeah,
if there were objections or, I think voiced support, we'd kind of gather those and just make that ourselves. Tyler, I don't know if you're able to weigh in there on how Akash handles that process. Can I make you a
boom.
speaker?
I just invited him to speak. But yeah, I think part of it's going to be a process too of making this. I don't know why he's not on the steering committee. Boom. He has the role now too, so he can just jump up. Um, but I think part of the value prop going forward will be making it easier to do that. So, for instance, we don't have an implementation of something like DAO on Passage right now, and it is kind of pricey to do that for their team to implement that. But if we had something along those lines that made it easier to have some type of on-chain vote, I mean, I'd be happy to push towards something like that. I don't think it's essential. I do think there's a cool benefit to that, being able to vote based off of, a steering committee NFT or some type of on-chain element would be cool. But I don't think it's essential right now.
Tyler, we invited you to speak. Saw you raise your hand. Um, if not, we can also address the second question. And I know Anil from Bitwood is here, so he might be able to add something to this. Will the indexer improvements require any chain upgrades?
I don't think so. I think
Not from our side, that's for sure.
yeah. Because it is primarily exactly. And they'll just confirm now because it's basically it's indexing information from the chain, um, but it doesn't actually require any interaction or different interaction with the chain than what's already there.
It says Tyler requested to speak, but
Yeah, sounds like he's kind of confirming the same thing that we're saying. Says, I'm not sure why I cannot speak. weird. There you go. Boom.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I hear a little ticking in the background, so I apologize for that. But yeah, with Akash, and what I would recommend here is because you have a lot of folks that are heavily involved in kind of the decision-making process that usually join the steering committee calls. I don't know if it's necessary to have like some massive vote. People can ask questions. Obviously, Max is here to represent the team with the proposal related to the indexer right now. If there's any questions anybody can ask, and then members of the steering committee would, weigh in on their opinions. And then for us in the cost, if something goes on chain for a vote related to like a community pool spend or like dollars and cents, then again, the steering committee's votes and opinions will be shared with the validators, and validators are free to vote however they want.
Right.
But in here, if it's specifically like a bounty item, then whoever's controlling the bounty, which it sounds like the steering committee or at least like the foundation is controlling the bounty, as long as the
Right.
group agrees and talks about things, then um, the deciding body can move forward however they see fit. Just giving my 2 cents on uh, the Clubhouse team. Again, they have been a great steward in the Akash network ecosystem for years, and have gone above and beyond. They have shown that they will do the work and will follow through. They'll make themselves available. So any team that would like to leverage their services, uh, I would support, because they are a team that, again, will actually do the work and be accountable. So as a steering committee member, I would vote in favor of moving forward with this indexer, especially if it's something that's like high priority for the packet passage community. Then I think that the time is of the essence, and the Cloudmost team is able to deliver something in a timely fashion on time that works. So that's just my 2 cents.
Amen. No, I love that, and I totally agree. The funds are coming from the foundation wallet, so 100%. It's funds that are designated toward the purposes of the steering committee. So of course we want the steering committee to have every opportunity to weigh in on how those are used. But yeah, Brian, I think it makes perfect sense that we open up the conversation, give every opportunity for people to weigh in. But then we can kind of pull the trigger on that once it seems we have a general consensus. I don't think we need a specific vote necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can get this up as a project on GitHub at the very least, get the requirements and all of this information so it's there and documented beyond just saved in a Google Doc.
Perfect.
All right. And then Lex, I think Greg had another question about plans for prepping the marketplace for other chains. In my eyes, this is a future roadmap item, but maybe you want to weigh in there.
Yeah. And it could be an index requirement in the future as well, right? I think it's going to be part of this process of onboarding new creators, right? If we see that there's a huge synergy or potential with another chain in that process, then we can do that. We've seen some unique opportunities in Ethereum layer 2s. Obviously, other Cosmos chains, there's some unique opportunities. We've talked about, having Stargaze outpost on Passage, right? There's clear interoperability and interchain opportunities. It's just figuring out where is that, where's the key there? What's the value going to be to the Passage community? Because obviously, our first push will be, okay, why shouldn't this be just simply be on the Passage chain, right? But 100%, especially on the Passage platform side, we will want people to be able to verify that to leverage chain NFTs from other chains, right? Stargaze, Ethereum, things like that. to access passage experiences. So it does make sense that there could be an opportunity there on the marketplace side as well. But we just have to kind of address that as we see those opportunities coming up from noteworthy creators.
I just wanted to clarify that the question was meant in the sense that if we got to the point where NFTs could be IBC'd from other chains over to Passage,
Mm,
in the
right.
idea that, like, say somebody wanted to spin up like a Bad Kids metaverse thing where they could all do something sort of like the Wawa verse was. But you also bring up the awesome point of that we could have Passage work straight with the other chains. But yeah, that just wanted to clarify, since we were working on the indexer, if NFTs were IBC'd over to the chain, it might be something that in the near term could be planned for, since it would just be like working with the existing infrastructure. I think that in integrating other chains to natively work with Passage might be a larger ball of wax to tackle there.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of that's just going to depend on what creators are eager to leverage Passage, right? To figure out, what are the priorities for that type of synergy? Because I think really the answer is all of the above, right? We want people to be able to use other chains natively in the Passage platform, as well as, moving their NFTs over via IBC or whatever to the Passage chain. Because I think eventually there could be benefits for both, right? If we have this 3D NFT standard for NFTs on Passage, they might want to move their NFTs here so they can associate 3D data with them, right? As opposed to being on another chain. But in the meantime, it might be easier for creators to onboard into Passage by simply connecting from the existing chain. And then, they're creating value for our marketplace and our chain by driving fees on the Passage platform itself that get tithed to the chain. So, it's going to be both, right? And order of priority will just depend on how creators want to engage with the chain and the platform. Great question, though.
So I think with that, we've gotten through most of the agenda, and we can open it up for further discussion and questions, if there are any. In terms of action items, we will be working on the NFT staking SIG and requirements doc. We will work with Max to get essentially an updated timeline for the initial feature set for the indexer. And then we'll just continue getting things updated on GitHub, as well as the proposal for the indexer Bounty on GitHub.
Great. Thoughts, hopes, dreams, trials, tribulations.
Sounds good to me.
Yee. Good team go. Thanks
Good to
everybody
me as well.
for yeah, thanks for your participation, Max, Greg, Tyler, Anil, and appreciate everybody being here, kind of joining in this process. If you guys do have any questions as we follow up, or people listening to the recording, feel free to drop a message either in the general chat or message us directly. But yeah, appreciate your time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
See you.
Oh,
Bye.
peace.
Cheers.